Hello and welcome to another flight. Today we're going to do a repositioning flight. We are at Teesside Airport in northeast England and we have an EasyJet Airbus A320 Neo which needs to be repositioned just up the road to Newcastle Airport. So it's quite a short flight, it shouldn't take too long. So let's get inside and we'll get this aircraft configured. If you want to skip ahead to various other sections of the flight, there will be chapters in the description below, so you can skip flight planning, etc. if you want to move further ahead in the video. So let's get on board and we'll take a look at getting this thing set up. Okay, so the first thing we'll do is we'll get some power on. Turn on our batteries, followed by external power. We'll switch on our fuel pumps, start the navigation systems lining up, and we'll also start the APU whilst we're here. We'll put on a little bit of external lights to let people outside the aircraft know that the aircraft is coming alive. Put all the emergency exits, turn on the no smoking, and the seatbelts are already on. And we'll switch on our dome lights as well. Where are we? There we are. Okay, so now we're in a situation where we can sort out our flight planning. Now, for today's flight, what we're going to do is, it's a short flight, like I said. So if we're going to Navigraph, here we are at Teesside Airport here. We'll be taking off on runway 05, straight down this direction here. But as it's quite a short flight, we will be arriving into our arrival transition at ETSIS very soon after takeoff. It has a maximum altitude of 9,000, but we'll be at about 4,000 feet, the maximum speed of 220 by the time we get there. We will then turn to the right via NTS-02 into our RNAV25 approach, which is up and up at 4,000 feet, 200 knots, along to Suffolk up the coast, where we will turn left for our approach at Newcastle Airport on runway 25. So that is the approach that we're going to set up. So we'll go into our initialization page and we'll put in EGNV for Teesside, and we're flying to EGNT, which is Newcastle. I'll pop that in there. Good. Flight number for today, well, flight number for all my flights is Sierra Golf 70. Put that in flight number. Cost index is 10. And we will be flying at an altitude of 4,000 feet today. Simple flight. Put that in there. So that's the basic things done there. So now we can head into our flight plan. Putting our departure for Teesside. We're going off on 23. Sorry, yes, 23, runway 23. Pop that in there. There is no departure, no SIDS for Teesside Airport, so it's a straight out. So we'll insert that, and then into EGNT Newcastle. We are going to arrive on the RNAV25 approach, and we'll come in via the ETS1K arrival. So we'll pop that in there, insert. So what we should now have is departing runway 23, direct to ETSIS, NTS-02, up, Suffolk, and then we're into the arrival into Newcastle Airport. We can confirm that on our navigation display. Switch to plan. Now, if I just get this, there we go. We can now look at our display, toggle through the NTS. That was NTS-02, out to up to Suffolk, and then into the airport. So that all looks good. Okay, our initial navigations are still aligning, but we can speed that up by going across to our tablet. We will instant align just for speed's sake. And there we go, that's all done. Okay, come back into our flight management system and we will go into our fuel, and we will enter our 0 fuel weight, and then our block fuel. It's all done automatically, which is pretty useful. That's the fuel done. Now that our fuel is done, we can go into our performance. We'll be taking off with flaps 1 and a flex to temp. Outside it's about 11 degrees, so we'll just pop in 11 degrees into there. Sorry, wrong one. Into flex to temp, and we can now do our V speeds of 121 for V1, rotating at 122, and our V2 speed is 126. Right, that all looks good. Autopilot panel, we will put our initial altitude to 4,000 feet. That all looks good. Now we can get this thing powered up. If we look at our, where is it, APU, yeah, that's all fired up. So now we have that on. We can switch on our APU bleed, turn on our beacon, ready for engine start.
Flight attendants, arm doors, and cross check.
That all looks good. Crew only going at 4,000 feet, but we'll put on our crew oxygen, and we shall begin pushback. So we'll come back across to our tablet, services, pushback, and we will engage the system, and we'll go for the pushback tug. Early say, get into position. Okay, park and brake to off, and we shall start pushing back. Okay, now that we're pushing back, we can switch on the engine ignition system, and we will fire up engine 2. That is starting to turn there. Engine wind up there. I think that'll do for the pushback. Pause that there, put the park and brake back on, disconnect the tug, and switch that system off. Okay, how's engine 2 doing? That's available there now, so now we can drop down and click on engine 1. Whilst we're down here, we will switch on that. We will switch on transponder and the TCAS. Also, whilst we're down there, we will arm our spoiler and we will engage flaps to position 1.
Teesside ground Sierra Golf 70 with Sierra request taxi to the active departing straight out.
Sierra Golf 70, taxi to and hold short of runway 23 via taxiway Delta Alpha. Contact tower on 119.805 when ready.
Taxiing hold short runway 23 using taxiway Delta Alpha Sierra Golf 70.
Okay, so there's our clearance to taxi. Here we are on the main apron, just push back. And we're going to Alpha Delta. Well, we're already on Alpha here, and which will then take us on to, sorry, we're already on Delta, which is Delta, and then Alpha, which takes us up around this wide taxiway round to the runway over there.
Flight attendants, please prepare for takeoff.
So release the parking brake. Actually, while we're just starting to move, we can switch off the APU bleed and switch off the engine ignition system. and we work our way up to taxiway Alpha. The Airbus A320 Neo that I'm using today is not the default one, it's the freeware fly-by-wire, which is based on the default A320. However, it has a number of significant upgrades off the default model. I know many people would rather go on about the Phoenix model, which is payware, which has a lot more features ahead of this one. However, this is free, and I must say, for a freeware version of the default upgrade, I like it. I think in time I might upgrade to the funky textures. Upgrade to the Phoenix model at some point, but for the moment I'm quite happy with the fly-by-wire. Incidentally, the textures are again freeware textures, which you can get from flightsim.to. Oh, little squirrely there on the steering. It's quite a long taxi out if you're going off on runway 23 at Teesside. But we are almost at the hold point. And here we are at runway 23 hold.
Teesside Tower Sierra Golf 70 at runway 23 ready for departure, straight out departure.
Sierra Golf 70, wind 270 at 4. Straight out departure approved. Cleared for takeoff runway 23.
Okay, there's our
Cleared
clearance.
for takeoff runway 23 Sierra Golf 70.
So we'll get on the runway, line up, and then just go through our before takeoff checks. Okay, park and brake set. Switch on the landing lights. Switch on nose wheel light to takeoff. We'll put on our strobes. So I don't need a APU anymore. Should have turned it off a little while ago. Everything there looks good. It does give you a bit of a reminder down here. We've got auto brake mark, seatbelts are on, cabin has been checked, spoilers are armed, flaps to take off. We're good to go. 4,000 feet is programming into the autopilot. We'll engage that not long after takeoff. Okay, let's do this. Parking brake released and onto the toe brakes. Up to flex power. Engine's coming up. Off the brakes. And we're rolling. $80 knots. V1, rotate. 15 degrees nose up, positive rate of climb, gear coming up. Auto throttle engaged, autopilot engaged, 4,000 selected. Coming up through 180 knots. And turning towards ETSUS.
Teesside Tower Sierra Golf 70 frequency change.
Throttle to climb power.
Teesside approach Sierra Golf 70 is type Airbus A320 and 2 miles southwest of Teesside, 2,300 feet.
200 knots, flaps
Request
up.
flight following.
Sierra Golf 70, Teesside approach. Squawk 6653.
Squawk 6653 Sierra Golf 70.
Sierra Golf 70 radar. Contact 3 miles west of Teesside, 3,600 feet. Altimeter 29.902.
Okay, we're
Roger Sierra Golf 70.
approaching our maximum speed of 250 knots for below 10,000 feet and have arrived at 4,000 feet. Switch our range out so we can see our next waypoint. Exis is there, 12 nautical miles away. Okay, switch on the constraint so we can see what we need to satisfy. Maximum altitude of 9,000 feet and a maximum speed of 220 knots.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again,
Which we can get on our approach plate here. Maximum speed altitude of 9,220 knots. So we need to keep that in mind as we approach. So what I'm going to do, as we're not very far away, I'm going to begin the process of dropping the speed to 220 knots. It is a short flight, this one. There's not a lot of time in between the waypoints to get things configured out. We can look ahead. ETSIS 220 knots, where we'll turn right to NTSO2, 6,000 feet. Again, we're below that anyway, but maximum speed of 220, which is fine. We will then turn right towards UPMOPS, 4,000 at maximum of 200 knots. Okay, things are looking good. Our speed is arriving at 220 knots, still holding 4,000 feet. And we're getting very close to ETSIS, 6 nautical miles away. Everything's looking good. I must say, some of the textures you can get for liveries of flightsim.to, which are free, a lot of them, they're really quite good. I like them a lot. Okay, passing through a little bit of cloud. And we'll get ready for our turn towards NTSO2, which is just to the west of Washington, on the way up to Teesside. Where we will make a slight right-hand turn any moment now. Okay, here's our turn.
Sierra Golf 70, contact Newcastle approach on 124.38. Good day.
124.38 Sierra Golf 70.
Okay, just to remind ourselves, NTSO2, our next
Newcastle
waypoint,
approach Sierra Golf
below
70,
6,000 feet
4,000
and a
feet.
maximum speed of 220
Sierra
knots.
Golf 70, Newcastle approach.
Not long after that is 200 knots.
Radar contact, continue.
Newcastle Tower Sierra Golf 70 is 12 miles south, 4,000 feet with Sierra to land.
Sierra Golf 70 Newcastle Tower. Altimeter 29.902, wind 271 at 4. Enter left downwind runway 25.
Make left traffic runway 25 Sierra Golf 70.
Okay, there's our clearance to land at Newcastle, and we've just made our turn at NTSO2, and we're now heading directly out over the mouth of the Tyne, heading over South Shields, which is just there. There's the piers at the end of the Tyne, and just to our left here, well, you can't see through the cloud, but that's the River Tyne running through there. And when we get to our next waypoint, which is up, we need a maximum speed of 200 knots and below 4,000 feet. So let's get configured for that now. Reducing speed to 200 knots. And we'll hold 4,000 for a little longer, but I might start that coming down as we approach. If we now look at the actual RNAV approach, there's up, maximum speed 200. When we turn left in towards Supig, we have a maximum altitude of 2,600, and that's when we will intercept the glide slope. So we need 2,600 by Supig. I'll just confirm that in the ILS, in the RadNav, we've got 111.5, which is the frequency for the ILS. If we switch on the ILS system, we get some information. Okay, 200 knots, 4,000 feet. And we are 6 nautical miles away from Upmop. Passing through the cloud, over Jarrow, Hebben, and on the way out to South Shields. I'm going to start the process of dropping my altitude a little bit. I know it's already at the constraint of 4,000 feet, but I don't like leaving things to the last minute. So what I'm going to do is drop that to 3,000. Not much to see at the moment out the windows. But we're about to pass over the coast, as you can see. South Shields right below, and there's North Shields to the north bank of the Tyne, and the town of Tynemouth.
From the flight deck, ladies and gentlemen, as you may have noticed, we have begun our initial descent down to our destination. Now we'll
Just before we do the last few turns, I will now flaps to 1.
Return to your seat. We ask that you remain seated until the aircraft arrives safely at the gate. Flight attendants, please prepare the cabin for a ride.
You see the glide slope just tracking up there. That'll come a little bit above us, which is what we want as we approach into Upmop. I'm now going to drop my speed to 180 knots. We're now making our turn towards Supig. There's the coast there, Tynemouth, Cullercoats Harbour, on the way into Whitley Bay. .180 knots, flaps to position 2. Drop our speed a touch further to 160 knots. And set our altitude to 2,600 feet, which is what we need for Supig, which is our final turn before heading into runway 25 at Newcastle. That's St Mary's Lighthouse in Whitley Bay, which is a good visual reference point that our turn to runway is imminent. That's Whitley Bay, this section here. That's Seaton Sluice Harbour, which is where the turn point actually is. 160 knots, holding 3,000 feet at present. Getting ready for our turn. here's the turn. Once we've lined up, I will engage the approach mode and drop our speed to 140. That will allow us to continue our descent smoothly. Okay, approach mode engaged. 140 knots dialed in. Flaps to position 3. Come on. That's it. Okay, 140 knots. We're on the glide slope. We're on the localizer. We are descending down the glide slope. Just check our lights are all on that need to be on. Landing lights are on. That all looks good. Now, as the
2,500.
I'm going to reduce the speed to 135 knots, which is the landing speed that we're looking for. So flaps are 3, dropping to 135 knots on the glide slope, on the localizer, runway in sight. That's Cramlington Hospital just there, and that's town of Cramlington. We tend to get our clearance to land around about there, which is 6 miles out. That's the town of Blythe.
Sierra Golf.
There's our clearance.
1271 F4.
Gear coming down.
Land runway 25.
Clear to land runway 25 Sierra Golf 70.
Gear down and locked. Full flaps. I've just accidentally nudged my throttle there. It's just, oh, that shouldn't have happened. Okay, spoilers are armed.
1,000.
As it's a nice clear day, I'm going to disengage the autopilot now. Flying manually. Two whites, two reds on the approach, on the localizer, on the glide slope. Flaps to full, gear is down.
$400. $50, $40, $30, $20, $10, $5.
Touchdown. Reverse thrust out. $60 knots, reverse us in. Welcome to Newcastle Airport. Speed coming down.
Sierra Golf 70 exit runway when able.
Spoilers in. Flaps to up. flaps coming in. Exit the runway. Terminal building is just right ahead. Landing on runway 25 in Newcastle gives you a nice short taxi in.
Golf 70 contact ground on 121.73.
Right.
Going to 121.73 Sierra Golf 70.
Right, we'll just configure for taxiing in. We'll get the landing lights off. Take the strobe off. And nose wheel to taxi position. Speak to ground, find out where we need to go.
Newcastle ground Sierra Golf 70 taxi to the gate.
Sierra Golf 70 taxi to gate 10 via taxiway Bravo Alpha.
Taxiing to gate 10 using taxiway Bravo Alpha Sierra Golf 70.
Okay, there's our clearance to taxi, gate 10, which Newcastle is, get the right chart. So I'll give myself a bit of time to read this. So gate 10 is on the other side of the terminal building there, so turn to the right, turn to the left and in. Oh, where am I going? Okay, so as to not blind the ground controllers, turn off taxi lights. Gate 10, gate 10 is just here. Just lift my seat a bit so I can see the marshaller. Oops, a bit early on the brakes. Ooh, not quite. Stop and brakes on. Park and brake set. Throttles to idle. Ground power is selected. Engines to off. And we can get the doors open. Services. We'll have the jet bridge. Open the cargo door. Get the baggage truck and the catering truck. There we are. Welcome to Newcastle Airport. I hope you enjoyed that. I'll see you in the next video.